Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Power Half Hour, Unstoppable Business Owner. And today I'm so excited to have Paula Rosecky. Did I say that right?
It's Rosecky. Yeah, it's no problem.
Paula
I've
Rosecky.
heard it all. I've heard a lot of things. It's Paula Rosecky. Thank you.
Oh, anyways, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, Paula,
You
and
too.
definitely learning a little bit about more what you do.
Mhm.
So just tell our viewing audience a little bit about yourself and what it is that how you help your clients and what your business really is.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you and for anyone watching this anytime in the world. You never know, right? So I'm Paula Rosecky. I am a facilitator and mindset coach. I live in Seattle, but I have lived a number of places. I currently am a mindset coach to people who are high achieving immigrants or have an immigrant experience, and they are looking to go to the next level of what they deem as successful. Many of the high achieving immigrants I talk to often feel pressure to go into one type of career or another. And over time realize that maybe they want to be doing something else, or maybe they could be contributing with their skills in their unique way that doesn't always adhere to, a typical corporate culture or whatever kind of work culture that they're in right now. And so I help them just essentially tap into where what they really want, and and I help them through the steps of, understanding their obstacles and coming up with some strategies to help them get there. So that is the core of what I do. I also facilitate. I'm a longtime market researcher, so I still have a desire and longing and curiosity for facilitation. So I do that as well.
That's awesome. And I,
Mhm.
I have to say the reason why I had met you when we were in a class together, and I was just like, I love what this lady does. I'm not exactly sure what it is. And I know you said a lot of misconceptions about what you do is working with migrants, but it's immigrants that have actually been here for a while,
Yeah.
that are trying to get, like, they learn the basics and now they're trying to they're getting to the next level. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Yeah, like they get in there, they get their job, right? And then they might get the lay of the land for a while. And but then they're sort of when they're ready to up level and kind of understand where they are. I kind of help them bridge from like being newer to under having a deeper understanding of now what they're really trying to achieve.
Right.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to start this kind of business?
Okay. So that gets into, obviously my whole story and motivation for why I have a passion for folks like this. So my parents were immigrants from former Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic. And they were very much in this situation that I'm talking about. And they moved to the US to escape and communism at the time, and came to the US not speaking English, but being highly qualified in their professions. And it took them a while to get their feet on the ground and find their own definitions of success. And I saw their struggles, and I could see how some help would, I mean, and they got help along the way, right? But not in the way that a coach might help you kind of really see your thinking and help you understand, especially if you're going from one culture to another culture, how things might be a little different in your new place, and helping you kind of unravel that and adapt to that.
Right.
Um, so I saw some of that in my parents, and I've always loved immigrant stories. I really adore understanding why people move and migrate, change locations, and then I also actually work with the second generation, I have a number of like daughters of immigrants, even as adults, who are still unraveling some of their cultural stories in their head and want to pick that apart because there's stuff that we can keep that we really like. And then there's stuff that might not be serving us right now where we are.
Right.
So that's what I help with.
I love that. And I just
Mm.
want to say, go to the comments here. Well, thanks
Yeah.
for joining us, Kenny. Savor the flavor of the awesomeness and the peeps for sharing your delectable thoughts with us today. Kenny's amazing. Kenny's
Thank you,
awesome.
Kenny.
One thing that came to mind when you were talking is definitely the culture shock. Living from fleeing a communist country, coming to the U.S. where it's supposed to be peaceful. Now,
Mm.
and well, it's supposed to be peaceful, but everything that's going on in the last couple of years, it's like, I don't know. To me, it's like it's a culture shock for the people that are living here now. But
Right. We're all in a little bit of culture shock. I mean, we're all in some kind of shock right now, for sure. There is a collective bit of shock going on and especially with as things are opening up and hopefully not anticipating, going the other way again. But yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on for people and the folks that and that's not to say that I don't coach other folks too. I have a passion and this is what I talk about. Of
right,
course, other people come to me as well if what I talk about resonates with them. But because and we are all the thing we have in common right now is that we all have some form of dramatic change, a big change is coming.
yeah.
And as the world opens up and people are traveling more, you know.
Oh, that's funny. There was an announcement at work today. As of Monday, we don't have to wear masks anymore if we don't want to. So that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yes. I mean, I've heard people talk about that as they feel like it is an unveiling, like it is sort of a literal unveiling, right? Like now we can be more open again and be out there, but maybe there's some cautiousness that people still have.
Yeah,
And all of it's valid, so I think we each just need to tap into what's really true for us as things open up and change and work changes. And
exactly.
there's a lot to unravel there.
I've always been, if you're not in my inner circle, stay away from me anyways. No, kidding. I hug people, but you really, I gotta, like, I don't know. Somebody that I've just never met for the first time, I'm just like, hi, how are you? Let's do the handshake first,
Yeah.
right? Instead
Yeah.
of the hug. But that's
Well,
just
and I
me.
noticed I went out twice this weekend because I personally have been craving being among people, so I took
Mhm.
the opportunity and I too noticed myself like still staying on the periphery a little bit, not being all in the middle of the crowds. And yeah, it's going to take a while, I think, for me anyway, to get back to how things were, if they ever exactly will be that way anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Kenny says that's courage to relocate to a country and not know the language and culture,
Yes. Yeah, it is.
for
It's a
sure.
big, I think it's one of the biggest changes that I think people can go through is it's so brave, right? And so that I always think about the amount of preparation and bravery needed
Mhm.
to, get on to that however you're transporting to that next country
Right.
and then that moment of getting off the plane and all of the feelings that must come along with that.
Yeah.
It's pretty overwhelming. I have actually gone through that myself too.
Yeah.
Can I answer the rest of the maybe have two parts to my answer earlier?
Sure. Not a problem.
It's not really, it was my parents that, of course, was a big driving factor because I learned, I watched them go through that.
Yeah.
And I was one of those kids who helped them with their resume and, helped them learn the language to some extent and the culture. Like they didn't know anything about the way the US university system worked, for instance, right? So I
Right.
was the one kind of helping them learn that along the way as well. And then later in life, I decided that I wanted to go live in their country for a while. So I kind of went through the same thing the other way. And I lived in the Czech Republic. I thought it was going to be 3 months. And I ended up just falling in love with being in another country and learning another language and um, being able to travel around. And so I lived most of the 90s in Prague. So I got
Nice.
that side of things too. And then when I moved back to the US, I had reverse culture shock for about 3 years, and I had to figure out how to work through all that. So, all of these kinds of cultural transitions are the things that brought me to this kind of work.
I say, let me leave the country and figure this out. And then I'll need you to help me through the culture shock. I just would
Yeah.
really love to leave Canada for a little bit.
It's possible. Have you looked into it?
I not fully, but I know that if I know different things I can get a visa for and things like that. And
Mm.
I'm the more as I go and unfold with the business that I do have, because my business partner's from the US, so I know I'm going to have to be doing some traveling back and forth
Mhm.
soon. So definitely, definitely, it's one of the things that I'm looking into.
Yeah, and I think there are different kinds of I mean, I don't know if you feel like there's a little bit of culture shock for you when you come and go to the US, is there?
Not really.
Not really, yeah.
Except
I
for
don't think so.
your driving over in the States is freaking wild. Like you people are wild over there. Here in Canada, it's like nothing. I can't even drive in Detroit without like, oh my gosh. My husband was sick. I was supposed to be driving. I wanted to go over and get something because we live like we're on a border city.
Mhm.
He said, "Fine, but you have to drive." So I gets over there, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like I almost had an anxiety attack as I'm driving. He goes, "Pull over. I can't handle you having an anxiety attack. Pull over, and I'll drive." But other than that, everything else is great. And then when I get in Florida, of course, I like the palm trees, so that's nice. And then when I get into different parts of the U.S., I like different parts better. But yeah,
Mhm.
you're driving those scares the heck out of me.
Yeah, cities are different than the rural areas and yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just going to the comments for one quick second here. Kenny says he treats everybody cautiously. He has the stay back, except for when we meet Tenny. When I go to Texas, I better get a hug. Ligia, hello, welcome. She's
Hi
from
there.
Costa Rica.
Nice. Hi there.
He treats everybody as is he. I
Yes.
imagine it is.
It is. It's really magical. I've heard many people call it like the if you could make a sort of a Disneyland look, but in real life, that is kind of what Prague is. It's sort of unbelievable. It's a really beautiful, magical place for sure.
I
Yeah.
will add it to my list.
Yes, please do. Please do. I had the fortune of being there when it was still really raw after communism, after the opening of the wall. And so I got there at about 1992. And it was such an incredible experience because it was just kind of dark and lots of work needed to be done on the upkeep of the city and but people were pretty friendly, and like I said, had learned some of the language and continued to learn the language when I was there. So I think that made it a little easier for me because it is a challenging language for sure.
Right.
But
I would imagine. I definitely know when we went to Dominican, I tried to learn some Spanish before we left, so I wouldn't look completely like a gringo. But
we can try, but I don't it really doesn't work very well. I think as long as you're friendly, I adhere to the rule of knowing a few key words when you're
yeah,
going to a new country, even if it's just hello and thank you and please.
yes.
And at least we have
Those,
that.
yes, those, and bathroom and beer. That's
Yes, of
you know,
course.
Bano is, and yes, you got to know it.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, in
that's
the Czech
hilarious.
Republic, you have to learn how to say beer, pivo. It's called pivo, because it's everywhere. It's very high per capita consumption of beer in the Czech Republic.
My husband will love it. I'm sure he'll definitely want to go for sure.
Yeah, that's where Pilsner Urquell comes from, is the Czech Republic. So
Cool.
awesome beer.
I'll have to tell him that. So, what three things have you overcome to get you where you're at right now in your business and just basically life in general, I guess?
Yes. You know, when you asked me that earlier, I think I'll go backwards.
Sure.
So the thing I think most recently that I needed to overcome was my own self-understanding that I wanted to make a big change. So I had been in a job for about 12 years and I really loved it. I really, really enjoyed it a lot. And I could tell that I was like things were happening for me and I wanted to grow in ways that, that I couldn't see happening in my current position.
Hmm.
And so eventually I left that job, but that process of coming to that decision was probably more challenging maybe than I made it. But so I guess I overcame myself. I think a lot of what we have to overcome is mostly just ourselves,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And a
Yes.
little support goes a long way. So that's definitely been like a more recent one. The other one that preceded that and what began to make me wonder and consider working for myself and creating my own business and coaching specifically this these types of people who are high achieving immigrants was because my I lost both of my parents to pretty dramatic cancers. And over the course of about 4 years prior to me leaving my job, I I I experienced kind of helping them through that process. And it was shocking, and it was loving, and it was really hard work, but I wouldn't have changed anything, I wouldn't change anything for any of the decisions I made to in the way that I helped them. And my sister, I have a younger sister, but she and I worked pretty closely to help my parents through their deaths. And after they passed away, I that's when I really realized that I wanted to go back to an idea that I had had a long time ago, which was to coach folks. And then so any questions on that? That's the second one.
That it's just, that's another thing we have in common because
Yeah.
I lost my dad 6 months ago yesterday to cancer,
Oh, I'm
and
so
watching
sorry.
him pass was one of the excruciating experiences of my life. Let's just put it that
Yeah.
way. And I don't think there is a pretty way to die of cancer. And
No.
I so sorry for your losses, and having to experience it twice. But yeah, I get that with you. I mean, definitely. And Kenny says here he's always overcoming himself. But when you say that, you're not the first person on the show to say that, because they always say,
Mm.
I think we're all a work in progress. I work on myself daily. So to even get me to where I am today, I would never have told you that I would be a live stream host at all, let
Right?
alone
So
going
cool.
let alone in the process of getting syndicated along the way. I would have never have dreamt that for my life years ago.
Yeah.
So getting over yourself is definitely the key to unlocking what you're supposed to be doing versus what you have to do.
Yeah, and I think listening to that calling, right? And not um and just being really curious about it, like, huh, that's really interesting that I kept thinking about coaching people who were crossing cultures, right? And I questioned it for a long time, and then I finally was like, I've been thinking about this way too long, and I need to just keep moving in that direction
Mhm.
and just see what unfolds from there. And maybe that's not the thing that you land on, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it looks a little different than what you could have imagined.
Mhm.
But the key is to just move in that direction because we don't have forever.
No,
We do not.
unfortunately, we do not.
We do not.
And
And I'll just mention the third thing you asked about what I've
yeah,
overcome.
yeah.
And I really think the way that I originally got the idea to do this type of coaching was when I came back from Prague and I suffered reverse culture shock. And I had no idea who to go to, how to handle it. I went to a therapist for a while, and I realized that that wasn't really what I needed. And
Mhm.
a couple years later, I realized that what I probably could have used help, the kind of help I could have used was actually coaching, because I just needed someone to like listen to me, allow
Yeah,
me to tell my stories a few times,
yeah.
and then start nudging me in a direction to get out of my head about it.
Mhm.
Um, but I just didn't even know that anything like that was available. And that's that's how my idea actually that was the kernel of my idea here.
I love that. If you can't find it, create it.
Mhm.
And I love that. And that's how a lot of great inventors or inventions were made, and just trial and error. If this doesn't
Mhm.
work, continue to tweak it. Don't give up on your dream. Just tweak what you have until it does work.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Absolutely.
agree. I think, it's funny because it is a process of like trying something and quote unquote failing.
Hmm.
But it's really just another step that might take you to another direction or another step.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay. Like I have found even in myself in this work, working for myself and creating something,
Hmm.
man, there are days where I really just need to take a big pause and cut myself a little bit of a break, you know?
Yep.
And we all need that. We all need that. And that's part of the process too. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to quit or come up with a new idea. I think we like to tell ourselves that another idea is better, but I really don't truly believe that. I think your idea is your idea for a reason,
Hmm.
and you want to listen and follow that. And if you start questioning the questioning. you know
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
And then there's some things you weren't meant to do, and you're like, why did I go down that rabbit hole for 6 months when I could have been further
Yeah.
along? But you can't shit all over yourself either.
No.
So, like you said, taking the time, figuring it out, giving yourself the self care you need to get through those obstacles, right?
Mhm.
So, totally. And what three things would you say that you help your clients overcome, Paula?
Yeah. So in the spirit of I help them overcome themselves, um, it
Totally.
is so a number of my clients have English as a second language, but they're already, they're like they might think they're not as proficient as they might actually be. So I'm not a speech coach necessarily, but I do help people just understand their overcome their own thinking about what they think is, people's reaction to their language
Right.
and the self-confidence that comes around that. Because oftentimes they think that people might not want to hear from them, or, they kind of hold themselves back because they think their accent might be a problem.
Yeah.
It's never a problem. um, so we help kind of work through that. That's one thing. And then related to that, there are other things related to that. So it could be asking, um, knowing that they want more responsibility at work, knowing that they're very capable and they have a lot of value to add, but they're not actually stepping into all of that for some reason. And usually the reason is because of just something that's going on in the way that they're thinking about it. And it could be something that comes from their family or their culture. And so we kind of unravel some of that. Um, and then the third thing actually is around family dynamics. So when people come from other cultures, especially if they have family, abroad in another country, or they have family who comes and visits or, lives with them for a while, and they have different ways of looking at the world. Because sometimes when you move to another culture, and then you start absorbing some of the ways of thinking in that culture, and
Mhm.
now you might have some clashes with your country of origin culture. And
Right.
so I help them just kind of ground themselves in who they really want to be, particularly when it comes to relationships. And that can show up either at work and at home or with their family.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. It's. I think it's different for everybody. The
Mhm.
parents find, um, it different than the kids, and the kids are probably missing their friends, and the parents are missing the rest of the family that they left behind. And just
Yeah.
trying to combine that and make everybody happy, or at least copacetic, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and we can't really make everyone happy, right? So oftentimes I do help people who tend to please others because it's expected. So they may be, I mean, even if you take the career as an example, someone who goes in to be a doctor, for example,
Mhm.
because that is what that culture expected success to look like.
Right.
But then once maybe that person is in their career for a while, they realize, I don't think this is really what I want to do anymore. And that's a little bit of an extreme example, and that shows up in different ways as well. But it's things like that, or this idea that they have to be really high achieving. And what does that really mean for them? And how might that be getting in the way of them feeling happier and better? Is it really necessary for them to be achieving all the things that they're achieving? They might think it is,
Hmm.
but is that really true?
Well, I know in the Chinese culture that there is definitely a thing to perform. Like
Yeah.
you have to perform. And the kids, I remember my aunt lives in Hong Kong,
Hmm.
and when the kids were growing up, like their backpacks were so heavy, but the expectation on Asian children are, to excel and to, be the whiz, the brains behind everything. Uh, from my experience, I'm not saying that's everywhere, but from my experience, that's what it has been. So carrying that expectation and then coming to another country,
Yeah.
where we're supposed to be more laid back here in the US and Canada versus, a different communist country or even China or things like that. Um, so, even that culture shock when you said, oh, performing. And I find that with myself, my growing up, my dad's expectation was you went to work and you went to school unless you were dying, and that was it. And I have had to, my coach has trained me to say, hey, wait, you can take a step back, you can have some me time, it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
And I had to uncoach my brain. Like I'll be headed into my office and then I'll literally stop myself and go, wait a minute, I haven't had any me time today, so I'll turn around and walk back out.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Good awareness of that. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Just gonna go to the comments for 1 second here. Kenny, don't expect me to please everyone. It ain't happening. Savor the flavor of awesomeness in that.
Yeah.
Exactly, Kenny. No one
Don't need to
expects you to
please
please.
everyone. Mm-mm.
And like, yeah, and Kenny, you're having conversation in the chat. So That is great. Thank you guys for joining us. I can't believe
Thank
it's like
you.
half an hour already. Thanks to our guests for joining us. And Paula, is there any last things that, first of all, where can they reach you?
Yes, I can be found at paularosecky.com, and I hang out a lot on LinkedIn. I'm always there. And I have a 3-part video series on creating strong boundaries. So if someone is interested in that, feel free to reach out to me and I can send that to you. And you'll also receive a newsletter that I send out about 2 or 3 times a month.
Awesome. All that information is in the show notes, and I did put your website in the comments as we were talking.
Thank you.
So, is there any last words that you want to leave our guests with?
Oh yeah. I just say listen to your gut, listen to your heart, and listen to your thoughts and question them and move in the direction of what feels really good to you. Those are my parting
Absolutely.
words.
Oh, and Lygia says, interesting topic. There are many people moving to other countries. Actually, I know a lot of Canadians that are fleeing because
Mm,
they were with what we were up against with our government. It was just like, get me out of here. And some people just
mm,
sold their house, sold everything, and they moved to different parts of the world. Um, oh, thanks
yeah.
for being here, Lygia. So definitely. So if you are in the need for a coach to help you transition once you migrate over, definitely
Mhm.
get a hold of Paula. She'll definitely help you. I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together. So thank
Me
you for
too.
coming on, Paula.
Thank
And
you.
definitely join us next week, folks, for another episode of Power Half Hour Unstoppable Business Owners. And don't forget, be unstoppable. With that, see you next week.
Take care. Thank you.